but we also, you know, we plan for an hour. So if we start 10 minutes late, we're going to go over 10 minutes. I know some of you have things you go immediately into. So we're going to spend most of our time today in breakout groups. Sorry. But before we get started into that, we want to go over a couple of housekeeping items. So Rosie, do you want to start with that? And then I have a little point I want to talk about with the group, but if people trickle on, why don't we get started with a couple housekeeping topics and the example assignments.
Absolutely. Okay, so welcome everyone. Yeah, I want to hit a couple of big reminders and also announcements that came through on the forum and that there might be some confusion about. So number one, and this is important enough, we'll repeat it at the end of class too. I'll also make a post about it. Starting this Sunday into next week and for the remainder of our semester together, our class time is likely going to change for you in your local time zone. That's because we have our daylight savings time system in the States. And so we'll be springing ahead 1 hour for most of you. So meaning that class time is going to likely be later for you. So I'm going to share my screen and show you the breakdown. Just you could find your country and location there. So we are located in West Virginia in the United States. So for class time next week, we'll be at 9 o'clock, the same class time as we've been having, but for a lot of folks, except for those of you joining in Haiti and Bolivia who are on the same time zone, it's going to be a little bit different. So you see, we're looking at 1500 or 3 p.m. in Namibia and Burundi, an hour later in Kenya. So you see your time zone here. Please, update your calendar reminders or whatever helps you make sure you get to class on time. So we'll be looking at 1300 central time or unified time zone. And so for Matt and I here down in El Salvador, we'll be a little bit earlier too. So if you've got any doubts, reach out right away because we still expect you to be here on time. And that will be, again, reminder, starting Sunday evening, so will affect next class and onward. Okay, next I wanted to show you a couple of tricks for how to, one, share your lab draft, which I know some folks are having trouble with, and two, how to access the 3 example lab artifacts from past students. So if we look at our class here and go to course information and communications to find our course forum. 1 second while we're loading here. Apologies. My computer seems to be freezing on me. Okay, hold on. Let me stop sharing my screen. Thanks for your patience, folks.
It might help if you cut your video, Rosie. You're chopping.
Yeah, good idea. Okay, I'm going to do that. All right. Let's try this again. Okay. Sorry, I don't know what the issue is here. I just got, I guess, a lot going on for my little computer, but basically, so you'll see I added a note onto the course forum And in order to upload your draft as a document, as an attachment, there's a little trick you'll see at the bottom of when you go to reply that you click on advanced options. And that's when you'll be able to upload your document. So please go ahead and do that if you had any trouble. See, so other students were able to do it when you hit reply and then go to advanced. That's when you're able to add attachments down here. Okay. Now I wanted to show you about the example lab artifacts. So I had posted this earlier last week, but there's a little bit of a trick. So you might have noticed that if you click on the link, it won't take you to the artifact because it's going to take you in a big circle back to Moodle. So the only issue is that first you have to actually click on Mahara, which is our ePortfolio platform, and that will get you in the system. And then you should be able to click on these links and view it. So that's just sort of a safety feature to make sure that people seeing our stuff are actually a member of our group. So this was my example from when I was in this course, in your shoes. And you'll see that I did 1 page per success. So the first was about promoting the use of solar power in my community. If you go to the next page, you'll see about community compost services, which is ultimately the seed I decided to work on. And the last was on sustainable transportation options. So I did 1 page per seed, and you'll see that I very clearly addressed each question from the assignment for each seed. So we've got other examples here. We've got one from Abiba Banda, who is in Malawi, another from a classmate, Miss Tu in Vietnam. And so it doesn't matter how you format this. You see she had 1 page that was kind of an overview of the different successes. And if you go through this further, you'll see that she actually builds on it for the follow-up assignments. So take a look at these. And there's one final thing I'll alert you to, which is that if you are kind of newer to Mahara, but you'd like to use it, remember, it's optional. You can also submit this as a PowerPoint. We've seen some great examples of that. We've seen some great examples of Word documents and PDFs. But I did upload a how-to ePortfolio guide to this week on Moodle. So you can reference that if you've got any questions about how to work Mahara, and then reach out if you're in doubt. Okay, gonna pass it over to you, Luke.
Thank you. And yeah, do look at those assignments. The students, the former students, now most of them are alumni now, were very gracious in agreeing to share that. And I selectively picked, some really good and also diverse examples, so that you can really see the different ways this assignment can materialize. And luckily for all of you, based on the feedback we got from that group, we have, as Rosie said, that class, everyone had to submit an e-portfolio. But in your case, you can submit a PDF, a flashy presentation. There are, some of you got to experiment with some other softwares in the 601 course. So be creative and make sure it's useful. As I mentioned, we're going to try to get into breakout rooms relatively quickly, but we are going to spend some time here as a group, kind of priming the pump and really getting ready for those smaller discussions. Because, according to the syllabus, you all should have uploaded a draft of your assignment, and you should be all excited to meet as a group and look at those together. And help one another. And specifically, we're going to be looking at step 3 of the assignment. Help one another in this analysis piece, because that's what this assignment's all about, is really understanding what growth looks like and how it works in your community, and what are the indicators of growth you're going to be watching and monitoring if these different seeds were to grow. And I want to specifically focus on the first guiding question that we see in the assignment, because it's really the most important one, because this is a class about taking impact to scale. And all of the other 4 guiding questions really rest upon you having a solid understanding of the first one, which is it asks you who the stakeholders are. So let's think about that word stakeholders, because I'm really glad to see Brady and Carissa, or at least yes, Carissa, you're also on, because we had a great discussion the last week, and it got me thinking over the weekend. And this is really important when you think about the breakdown between in this concept of stakeholders. Because in ACC 601, which you all took, we focused a lot on participants. And we really kind of assume the people you're working with are participants. And so we didn't really focus on the distinction, which you have to focus on when you're starting to think about scaling up, between the different types of stakeholders. And there's 2 specific types we want to focus on for this analysis. And it's who are your participants versus who are your beneficiaries. Okay, let's think about that. Participants, it's that participation, it's a word, versus beneficiaries. What's the difference between a participant versus a beneficiary? Maher.
Yes, hi everyone. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Good. So for me, like the difference between participant and beneficiary are very clear. Participant can be someone who is involved in some work or taking action and trying to, let's say, to make kind of awareness action. And the beneficiary, the people who benefited from this action or who benefited from the work is done.
Great. And I like what you said, but let me ask you a follow-up question. Can participants also be beneficiaries?
For sure, like as participant, if you are not like learning from what you are doing, you are developing your skills, also you can be also beneficiary. Let's say if farmer, for example, is like producing some vegetables. So he will be on the same time like participant, and like the people who will get like the vegetables, they will be beneficiaries. So the farmer can use like the vegetables, but also he can benefit from like the money he will earn. So he will be like most of the time beneficiary also.
Absolutely, and very good example. And so when we think about this feedback loop that you've been hearing about, what is the quantitative growth? And this is where it starts to get interesting, because it's that very aspect of people benefiting, right, that make them interested, that draw them into participate. So your beneficiaries tend to be the people who are going to benefit. It's generally the people who you're trying to help. But there can be very passive beneficiaries, and that's something to be very, very clear about. So 2 examples I've in the past. Paul, I see you've entered something in the chat. Do you have a good enough connection to unmute and share it with the group? Okay, Paul. Well, I would direct. Paul's made a very good response to this as well in the chat. But let me focus on two examples that are rather different from the local town where I live. Two different seeds that I was involved with. The first, I think folks have heard me mention before, is this farmers market that I helped start. And that is very much, it's very akin to the example Maher gave of we had two types of beneficiaries there. We have the people who make money from it, and we have people who get local food from it. But in order to get local food, they also have to, they also have to pay up, right? So in many ways, it all really starts in that case with getting people to participate, right? And the harder ones to get to recruit are the vendors because they have to do more work. But then you also need to get people to show up, right? And over time, what you need to make sure is that both your customers and your vendors are going to benefit so everybody comes back. But that is a case where it's very easy to see by participating, you are benefiting. So that's one model of growth. And that's and be very clear that one of the ways on this seed in that example of the market is to participate in it. And so participation, that's an easy one. I was also involved I sit on the board of our local community foundation. And we did a big community-wide fundraiser to help fund the creation of a new elementary school. And in that case, it was very different because most of the people there were a small number of people, maybe 50 people total, doing a lot of work. And none of us are in elementary school. None of us work for the school. So that's an example of we were all participating and we benefit in a very indirect manner of we have a nicer community to live. But the primary beneficiaries of that are the children and the families of those children. But because of that, you're building a sense of hope. And so from that, we were able to get broader support and raise awareness for our nation. So, I just want to point to those are two different examples, very, very simple ones. But to start to try to get into this whole idea of, as you analyze these seeds, who do you need to have participate to make it work? And then who do you hope will benefit? What's the goal to get these people to benefit? And what will be the improvement to their quality of life? Because you hope in order to scale up, if you can create good impact in a lot of people's lives, then you have a greater chance that they will also come participate in the future. Daniel, before we go into breakout rooms, and that really is the assignment, is go around and share each of your seeds. But as you're presenting and as group members, ask people, okay, who are your beneficiaries? Who are your, really focus on that. But Daniel, do you want to build on this point? Because it's a very essential, this is where we really start to get into scaling up, right?
Scale, Luke, is a good summary, but I'd like to tighten the idea a little bit. In order to get scaling up, you have to get participation. Okay? Why are people going to participate? People are going to participate because they benefit. You have several choices on how people can benefit. And you should write these down. They can benefit because they're getting a job. You're employing them in your program. They're working for you. They're going to benefit because their quality of life improves. They're going to benefit because they get prestige in the community. They're going to benefit because of religious and value beliefs. They want to help others. They're going to benefit because they can see the future, and they can see that the future will be better for them, maybe more peaceful, less violence, more hope, healthier. So there's a line, as go back to Maher's point, there's the participant group. And then there's the idea of why are you participating? That's because you're getting a benefit. And the benefit for religious reasons is just as good as the benefit for improving your quality of life. But if you're going to go to scale, you've got to be very clear on what the incentive is, what the benefit is. Because if you're laying a trip on them, as we say, if you're shooting on them and say you should participate because you're part of my tribe, or you should participate, people don't like to participate because they're being imposed on. Scaling up happens because people want to participate. That's all I wanted to add. Thank you, Luke, for your important distinction.
Thank you. And that's one thing to think about, as Daniel was saying, he was talking about the reasons why people benefit. And so when we talk about analyzing and really understanding your stakeholders, focus on that. I like to think of these as who are your active participants versus your passive participants, because it takes something like a customer at a market, right? We need them to participate. Their participation is really critical, but their job is very simple, right? They just come. Whereas the participation required from something like the vendor, which is obviously very integral, they are putting much more human energy into it. And so acknowledging why they put that energy into it and how to get them to put more, and saying thank you for putting your energy. These are all really important pieces. But as we think about scale and you think about participation, it's easy to think, oh, anything I do needs to benefit a lot of people. That's not necessarily true, because what we mean by scaling up, and certainly what we mean by scale one, is growth, getting things to start growing. And so you have to understand what are the resources that growth requires in order to get people to participate. And the reason why people participate is some group is going to benefit, and they have a reason for it's either selfish or it could be philanthropic and humane for why they care about that benefit. Is that clear? Do people have questions on that before we go into breakout rooms?
Luke, repeat the discussion point again, please. Breakout groups.
Well, so everyone should have shared your seeds in your draft lab assignments in before the class. If you were not able to, I hope you at least, for technical reasons, I hope you at least have a draft that you can summarize for the group. And as you're presenting those seeds, those 3 seeds, explain, or as a group, ask the presenter, work as a group to clarify who are your participants and who are your beneficiaries, and how are the beneficiaries benefiting, and why are the participants participating? Because at its core, you're trying to understand and analyze the human relationships that are driving your growth process.
So with that, we're ready to break you up into your different rooms. Just want to put it out there. You should aim to take, about 5 minutes per person to talk about your seeds. We've got 3 people in each group for the most part. And also, by all means, someone in your group should step up and be that timekeeper, because you want to make sure that everyone has a chance to share and you have time to discuss. And when we're done, you'll get a warning, of course, 1-minute warning, and we'll come back as a big group and you can bring any questions to the faculty. Okay, see y'all soon. please click on the invite to your breakout room. See, Albert and Grace and Bishnu might be having connectivity. Okay, Grace is in. Hey, Albert and Bishnu, can you hear us? I know I've seen Bishnu's been in and out of the meeting 3-4 times today. She's having a lot of issues.
You may want to pause the recording for
Yes.
folks who